All right, let's do a little golden hour walk through the property. This will be a shorter video because I spent the whole weekend working on basically just 2 or 3 projects, but I did get a lot done. We're gonna come into the house here and just have a quick look at a couple of things. First of all, we are now more or less completely closed in. I've got a hot mess of expanding foam that I've got to come trim off so that I can start prepping, for final trim. But what I've done is gone through all of the soffits, and those are going to have rafter vents in them. So this is a vented roof here. There's a vented ridge. But I'm not ready to deal with that right now. We can't insulate yet. We haven't got our inspections. And I'm really just trying to keep the flies out. We are getting so many flies that I cannot even begin to tell you. If I just pan around to here, if you want to see something gross, this is just one fly strip that I put up for one day. And they're honestly just swarming. It's a Colorado thing. And I'm not going to stress about it. It's not something that's going to be permanent here. But I did want to get some insulation stuffed into there just to keep the drafts and the flies out. So I'm pretty happy with that. We got a fun little reflection pattern or prism pattern going on here from the front door that is not intentional. That is the special glass that's in the front door. So just kind of a cool effect there. And yeah, nothing that we would have planned, but don't hate it. Coming into here, there's really not a lot that happened in the kitchen and dining room, so let's skip over this room for now. A big thing is I've started on the railings here. So you can see this railing is not complete. This is just a construction railing for now. This will all be closed in. This is just the structure that goes under the railing. There'll be a cap on here. You won't see any of this. This will be drywall on both sides. But if we come upstairs here, this railing is actually very solid, even though it doesn't have all of its studs in place. And it's a little dark, bear with me, but you can see over here that I've done all of the railings here for the loft. So all of this stuff is very strong. It's not going anywhere. It doesn't shake or move or anything. I set it at 42 inches. Minimum code, I believe, is 36, but they're recommending 42 for accessibility. And honestly, if we're aging in place in the home, that felt like a good idea. Plus, if we're ever going to have kids running around, didn't want to have a dangerous situation. So we still have a very nice view out the windows. Well, I should say, not a view per se, but we get lots of light. We have thought about putting one more row of windows up there. I think I may have mentioned that in a previous video, and that is still something that's on the table. You can see that the way I framed it, we have columns that are bearing all of the load up to the ridge and the various bits of the gable end here. So there's no load in that section at all, and I could very easily just take what is basically a header here and add another one there, call that a bottom sill, and then put one last row of windows in. So we might do that. That's a future item, not for right now, definitely not a high priority, but anyway, that's what that is. Again, you can see you've got a lot of this, the venting that comes up from the soffit here. There will be baffles and rafter vents there, but for right now, just wanted to get it sealed off. So 2 rolls of insulation, I cut it to 1 foot lengths, just kind of stuffed it in there to keep the drafts out. And it's working amazingly well. It's very cold here right now. It's the beginning of November. And we're getting up to a point where it's starting to be, 10, 15 degrees overnight. We are at 8,600 feet of altitude. And then during the day, it'll regularly get up to 50, 55, but it's very breezy, very drafty. So, we're really having temperature balance issues. Another completed task here is that I've got this pipe here. You can see this is the vent. This goes down to the master and the guest bath. And also, all the toilets and tubs and everything that are in those 2 rooms. So there's one penetration here, and there will be another one over on this side. I haven't started that one yet, but I will do that soon. One thing I was waiting on was just figuring out where I was going to locate it. And I'm glad that I waited, because originally, you can see where the kitchen ends here. That's the back of the kitchen wall. And down here, right around the middle, is where we're going to have the stove. And then we'll have counters all along here, a sink, and a dishwasher under this window, and then a bit of a peninsula that comes out there with a fridge back over in this corner. So it should be a really nice space to cook and work in. But what I was thinking is that I was going to run this wall all the way up to the ceiling, and I've changed my mind. I hope my wife isn't watching this because I'm hoping it's going to be a surprise for her. But what I've decided to do, I've seen this in a few houses, is I'm going to make this a bit of a ledge, sort of a storage and plant ledge. We like to have a lot of plants in the house. We've got, what we call, I call it Spiderzilla. Everybody's got a different name for it, but big old spider plant that's been growing like crazy and now spans like 14 feet. So we need a place to put things like that, and this feels like a really good place for that. So I think what I'm going to do is, instead of tying the wall up to this rafter as I was originally planning and just having it go straight up, what I'm going to do is take it back over to this rafter and have about an 18-inch, maybe 20-inch, we'll see, ledge right around here, wherever that wall kind of ends up landing. And then I think will give us some extra storage in the kitchen for, not paper towels, but like knickknacks and things like that. Things that aren't part of our daily use, but we like to keep in display and want to have available and not want to take up counter space. So that's going to be that. And then obviously I've got to get some wiring going on in here. I've got some of my boxes put in, but no actual wiring installed yet. That'll be a job for the next couple of days. One last thing, and we'll see if I can get some light in the room because it is getting dark. Coming down the hallway, you can see how that wall starts framing out here. So the way this will work is this will just be wall, just to start the stairway, and then right here will be the main return for the HVAC. I've got a horizontal mount furnace, and I'm going to do the return here, mount the furnace kind of under this section here, and then when the furnace has its output, the output of the furnace will go this direction, which seems, the wrong way for the main space. But the main space is probably going to have some type of gas stove in it, just, for ambiance and stuff like that. And also it gets the most sun, so it's the warmest part of the house. The back rooms are the coldest. So it'll actually be the perfect spot. If the air is coming out here, I can run a baffle this way, or a main vent, a main duct box, and then run some ducts with some floor ducts, probably some flexi duct. It's not as good, but I'm not an HVAC guy. So probably run some flexi ducts, and we'll do just some floor registers over in my office, guest bath, master bath, closet, back room, all the rest of these kinds of rooms. So that'll give us the opportunity to get heat into those rooms, and it won't stop us from heating the other rooms. I'll still be able to run some ducts over to these, obviously, but the main efficiency would be pointing this way. And then the idea, if I can step back into my office without falling over, is from here over, so that'll be the return, and then from here over, my wife would like dog palace. So this will be like some built-in kind of like sleeping quarters. Again, our dogs are crate trained, but we want to have, just a really nice space for them. They're very small dogs, but they're kind of in cramped crates right now. This will give them a lot more room to sleep and have kind of more of a den. And then also, be able to have room maybe for more dogs. By code, I did put an outlet back there, and that's just so I can pass inspection. I'll talk to the inspector about that. I'm also going to have outlets in the wall, obviously, but I'll talk to him about what code requires there. Obviously, you don't want the dogs sniffing in there, but for right now, that is an exposed wall, and I just wanted to put an outlet box there. So I'll talk to the guy and see what he says. Back over in this corner, where I framed out the rest of this, you can see that Doggy Palace doesn't need to be this entire run. This is about a 13.5-foot run from there. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to put a storage closet here. And I haven't decided if we want to put the door on this end or on this end. That's a TBD item. This end is starting to feel a little smarter, but originally the plan was here, so I've marked for it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait to frame this until my wife has a chance to look at it, and we could talk about which direction we want to go. And then you can see that there will be an outlet in the closet, so that if we want to, charge battery-operated vacuum cleaners, whatever. It's sometimes nice to have an outlet in a closet. A lot of closets don't have that one, and that's just a nice touch for us. Coming down into the master bath and the guest bath, I haven't made a ton of progress, but it was because I was short of parts. You can see I've drilled all the holes. So basically, here's the plan, if you can follow me here. So the main vent that went through the roof, we looked at that a minute ago, comes down through here and will branch off and goes through these studs. And I'll have stud shoes on them. This is not a load-bearing wall. That is a load-bearing column. So I can't cut that column, but I can cut anything in this wall. It's all just framed 2x6 so that it would have enough room for plumbing to go in it. That was the job. That's why it's there. But running plumbing in a wall is really challenging, particularly with PVC. You know, you can heat it and bend it, but I don't really want to mess with it, distort it, and have any problems. So I've decided what I'm going to do is go ahead and put some stud shoes in, and that way I can notch them instead of having to drill holes in them, and hopefully that will give me a little bit of a better run. So we're going to have a couple of, there will be a sanity there, a couple of T's over here, and an elbow down at the corner, and then coming up here, what we'll have is that vent will come down and help be part of the stack vent down into the basement, into the crawl space. But it will also be the drain for the master bath, for the guest bath vanity, which will be on that side of the wall. The master bath vanity will be much longer. It's going to run all the way over to, let's see, I marked it. It's probably not going to be very visible. It's not this red line here, but this black mark. So the master vanity will run 6 feet long. And because of that, this drain here is actually more in the center of that. And I'm not going to do 2 separate drains. I'm going to have one drain that comes out, and I'm going to tee them behind the cupboard just for simplicity's sake. So I have less to run in the wall. We've got to get our inspections done. So guest vanity, master vanity will be here. You can see I've scattered a lot of my materials out. That's the guest toilet. And then I've got my traps and everything else set up. This will be the master shower, and that will be the guest shower. The reason they're not in line is that the guest shower is going to be a standard shower enclosure. We're just going to get one of the normal liners right out of Home Depot and just drop it right in. But the master is going to have a linear drain, and that is, we're going to use the Schluter, and I can't remember what I think we settled on, the 42-inch, and that is the alignment for that drain. So that's why they're a little offset. That's not a mistake. That's on purpose. And then one last thing, although I haven't framed it yet, we will have a little half wall here. So when you come in, you got the toilet, you have just a nice little space while you're doing your business, and, you know, room for a toilet paper holder and that kind of stuff. I do have an outlet box. You'll wonder why I've got outlet boxes by the toilets, and that is for bidets. And yes, we like bidets. Coming over here, this was a tiny detail, but an important one. This door was not mounted right, had a lot of trouble with it. Now I don't have trouble with it. So yeah, so we need to be able to get out on the master deck. This door is not perfect, but it was a cheap door, and I did what I could with it. I have not finished this yet, but you can see down there, I've started wrapping the master water pipe that goes up to the cistern here in some foil. That's an experiment, and it's not going well, but it's, you know, it's okay. I did want to support it to about midway up, and that's what that kind of bar is there. That's why it kind of curves over. So I'm still messing with it, but what I did do is I've got heat tape, and I've got that wrapped around the pipe here, and it goes all the way down to below the frost line. So there's pipe insulation and heat tape underneath it, taped all the way down to where the pipe goes to 42 inches down. And I did that so that our pipes don't freeze in the winter. It gets really, really cold here, and we want to make sure that's not a problem. So still working on that. I've got my ground rod on this side about half driven, a rocky soil. Hey, I feel pretty good about the progress. I did get a driver. That was just done by hand with a sledge, but I got myself a driver for my SDS Plus drill, and I'll be using that to get it the rest of the way down. There will be 2 ground rods, and if I can just kind of do this without falling over, you can see I've made a stab at running the second one down into the ground here. And I've got that one about 3.5 feet down. They're 8-foot ground rods. So that's, I don't know, maybe 5.5 feet. I've got that, I think, about 3.5, 4 feet down. And this one's closer to 5 feet down. So not super worried about it, but we'll do what we do. Let me lock this door here. Little project that's going on that doesn't really look like much in the dark, but if you look down here, you can kind of see some gas piping. This is not where the gas piping goes. This is a mock-up. I was just making sure I had all the parts, because once I start putting it together, I kind of want to do it all at once. So I'm kind of doing like a dry layout here and, you know, getting my sediment traps and my valves and everything set up. If you can imagine, what's mocked up here will be on the other side of this wall. That will be to feed the hot water heater. And it looks a little high, but that's because it's going to be dropped down below the joists. So it's going to be about 14 inches below where we're seeing here. And that should be just the right height there, so I can do a CSST or whatever flex hose up to the water heater. Then from here, there's going to be a little elbow. It's going to run that way over to that yellow pipe you may have seen early in the video. That will bring the propane into the building from the 1,000-gallon propane tank that we have out there. It'll run over through this pipe as well. Over to here, this will be the fitting for the range. And I've done the nipple this way so that it can go through the wall. Because again, this is going to be just on the other side of that wall. And so this will let this come through, and the run will be actually over there. But I'd rather tee vertically rather than try to tee over and then up, and it just got a little messy. So in any case, that was a good run for me, and it works out pretty well. I'm pretty happy with that. Finally, this remaining piece of the run here, you can see I've got a service union. There will be another union over there to work on it. But this remaining piece here is what's going to go over to the furnace. So I think I have enough pipe. I got an extra nipple over here if I need some more material. And I do have a threading kit. If I need to cut something a little bit short, I can do that and hopefully thread it myself, or maybe bring it back to Ace Hardware. Last item, and then I'll cut the video here. Let me see if I can get some light going. I can't remember if I have this light plugged in. No, I do not. So sorry, bear with me here. I don't have that light plugged in, but basically what I've got here going on in the panel is, if you can kind of see by this fading light, we have a lot of these AFCI, GFCI circuit breakers. And what I've been doing is kind of putting some circuits in. I've got 2 or 3 going right now, and I'm working on adding more. And I'm trying to do my runs as neatly as I can, and I'll be starting to wire the house over the next few days, probably starting with the smoke boxes and then working on lights and outlets. But the battery system, this is probably not going to come through on camera here. Maybe it will. Initially, when I set this up, EG4 had a great setup. I really liked their kit, but their kit's grommets were not sufficient. There were no grommets that were included with this conduit box. The conduit box doesn't line up very well with the inverter, even though they say it does. It's got like little overhangs and things here that stop it from lining up perfectly. And the grommets were all the wrong size. There were like 3 correct ones and 6 that don't fit any of the holes anywhere. So I don't know what they're for, but I went ahead and bought a bunch of grommets off Amazon and just kind of lined these holes here and then got some permanent stuff done. So you can see I've re-identified my cables. I was not able to get red and yellow wire for the panel here, at least not in the size that I needed. And, you know, in any case, I got everything done. But I just tore everything out. I put ferrules on my battery terminals. Don't know if you're going to be able to see those, maybe. But those battery terminals have ferrules hydraulically crimped on them now. I've got grommets on all the holes. My conduit has the right lock rings on it. In a previous video, I may have shown I had like some ghetto hose clamps here because it's all I had on hand. I didn't have 1-inch lock rings. And believe it or not, Home Depot was actually out of stock the day I went. I got my ground all set up. So I think all my wiring is in pretty happy shape. And what I'll be working on shortly is the conduit for the solar. So right now the solar is kind of just hanging out here. You can see these PV wires just kind of run down along the floor here and down through a hole back there, if that comes through. But obviously that's not going to be kosher. So what I'm going to do is I've got some rigid metal conduit, some RMC, and I'm going to run that out of the side of this box here with a good ground on it, run that up through the ceiling and do a ceiling penetration and go up to the roof and then run that up to the panels. And that'll be fully grounded and mounted to the roof. So that should meet code and should meet the inspector's requirements, I hope. And then, you know, as we said, I'm going to be working on venting. So since this area here is probably going to be some type of storage ledge, that means my plumbing vent, my master plumbing vent, will probably be up in this rafter cavity. And that's okay. There's no problem with that. I'm just going to bring it down the wall, bring it over here, and bring it over here. I got plenty of fittings. And there's absolutely no reason I can't do that. Plus, it'll be convenient getting it over to the kitchen. So those are all the things that I've got going on for the next few days. Wish me luck, bear with me, and I'll post another video later this week. Thanks for watching.